Well, Jimmy, you're a good salesman, all right, but I think that I'd be safer with an outside opinion. Do you mind if I leave this up to someone I think is qualified to know?
Certainly not. Call the bum over.
Oh, Johnny Mercer.
Yes, Ginny.
Johnny, I'd like you to meet Jimmy Durante.
Glad to know you, Jimmy.
The pleasure is likewise. I'm mutual.
Well, Johnny's a singer, Jimmy, so naturally he'll be interested in Umbriago's method of voice culture.
Yes, I'm very much interested. Can you explain it to me, Jimmy?
Can I explain it? Just ask me anything you want to know. Any question at all.
Well, how does Umbriago's method compare to the Slavonic method of contrapuntal emphasis through diaphragmatic respiration?
I missed a great opportunity to keep my mouth shut. Listen, Mr. Mercer, let's not get technical. Suffice it to say that a guy like Nelson Eddy would be nowhere today if it wasn't for Umbriago.
Really?
Of course. Why, when Nelson Eddy enrolled in our school, he couldn't sing nothing. And after a half a dozen lessons, out came shortening bread.
How did you accomplish that?
For 6 weeks, we made him goggle with Bisquick.
Well, that's very interesting. Yes, highly interesting, James, but if you don't mind, I think I'll stick to my own method.
And what if I may be so bold as your method?
Very simple, Jimmy. I start a note in the lower tone chamber, let it run around the esophagus, from where it turns adroitly into the diaphragm, makes a slight reconnaissance over the respiratory canal, and arrives at the larynx in the form of a tone, like this. Ah!
Wait a minute. Let me ask you something.
What?
Was that trip necessary? You and your esophagus. Esophagus from it turns adroitly into the diaphragm.
Maybe I better just sing, right, Jenny?
Right, Johnny. Fellas, here's Johnny Mercer, aided and abetted by Joe Stafford and the Pied Pipers with their version of Lullaby of Broadway.
Come on along and listen to the Lullaby of Broadway. Hip hooray and ballyhoo, the Lullaby of Broadway.
The rumble of the subway trains, the rattle of the taxis, the daffodils that entertain at Angelo's and Maxie's.
When a Broadway baby says goodnight, it's early in the morning.
Manhattan babies don't sleep tight until the dawn.
Good night, baby. Good night.
Milkman's on his way.
Good night, baby. Good night.
Dig that cabaret. You better not start to hit the hay. We're going to travel along Broadway.
We'll get a taxi and hop a bus. So come along, folks, and follow us.
From the Battery to Yonkers-town, right up to Yonkers and back on down.
And when we hit all the spots in town, we'll call it a day.
Listen to the lullaby of old Broadway.
Hey, good night. Good night, baby. Time to say good night. Milkman's on his way. Sleep tight. Close your eyes. Sleep tight, baby. Sleep so tight. We'll call it a day. And listen to the lullaby of old Broadway.
Well, the GIs in the country took themselves a poll. It's called the GI Music Popularity Poll. And the band that won wasn't a surprise to anybody. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the musical platters recorded by that young man with a horn, Harry James.
Well, Ginny, the boys and I certainly appreciate the honor of being chosen the favorite GI band.
You know, Harry, such a distinction really calls for a speech.
Well, I'm not much on speech-making, Ginny. The band and I would rather show our gratitude by swinging out lightly with our idea of the St. Louis Blues.